Vasuvaha Tatsarvetu Varenim Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Deo Yona Prachodayate.
What you doing in this darkness, baby? When you know your love will set you free. You're staying in the sea forever. Try a little of eternity. What you doing in this darkness, baby? Hanging out where the sun don't shine. Come on out into the light of love, child. Don't spend another day living in the sea.
Chapter 5, Giant Bluefin by Douglas Whynott. Whynott is something altogether different. Chapter 5, A Rich Man. The tuna fishery had picked up in the Gulf of Maine. The tuna fishery had picked up in the Gulf of Maine. On the morning of July 22nd, Bob Sampson had received a call from a chummer who told him the bite was on and the fishermen were catching 50 bluefin a day along Jeffrey's Ledge off southern Maine. At that rate, they figured, the general quota would be filled in late August. Fishermen in the Gulf of Maine fished primarily within two permit categories, the general category and the harpoon category. There were 5 categories in all, with another for purse signers, an quote-unquote incidental category for long-line trawlers, and an angling category for the recreational and charter boat fisheries. The entire western Atlantic quota, allowing for a total harvest of 2,660 metric tons of bluefin per year from 1983 to 1991, was shared by the United States, Canada, and Japan, set by international agreement and administered in the United States by the National Marine Fisheries Service. The general and harpoon categories were a little nebulous, because harpooners worked in both. General category fishermen could use hand lines, rods, and reels or harpoons. Harpoon category fishermen could use harpoons only. The general was by far the larger of the two categories, with a quota in 1992 of 531 metric tons, approximately 3,000 giant bluefin. There were approximately 10,000 general category permit holders covering ports along the East Coast. The daily limit in the general category as of July 1992, when new regulations were issued, was 1 giant bluefin at least 70 inches long per boat. The harpoon category was much smaller, with a quota of 53 tons, about 300 fish. Approximately 200 boats were registered, nearly all of them in New England, and about 30 of those boats actually caught fish, working primarily from Cape Cod to Maine. Because the harpoon category was small and involved such a high level of skill, few fishermen would register their boats in it. But the distinction, advantage, and temptation of the harpoon category was that there was no daily limit. A boat could land 1 or 10 fish in a day, and a skilled fisherman working the right place at the right time could make a year's income in a few days. Only the best harpooners had boats in this category. Some had a boat in each category. Bob Sampson, for example, with the Scratcher, in the Harpoon and the Rush in the General, or Sonny McIntyre from Algonquin, Maine, the Sullivan family from the Cape with the father running one boat, the mother another, and two sons in the pulpits, with the former javelin thrower on the Harpoon boat. All the Cape harpooners and some from Maine hoped for a fall like 1991's, when after the general category had reached its quota and closed for the year, a dozen harpoon boats had a productive ground east of Chatham all to themselves. The fish then in their last stages of the feeding cycle were loaded with fat and brought the highest prices of the season. One day Eric Hess, running the Scratcher, while Bob was hunting elk in Colorado, caught two fish worth $18,000 each. This was now in late July 1992. The quality of the fish had improved somewhat, but prices were down at about $9 a pound for the best fish, because Japanese purse signers were catching tons of bluefin, 5,000 prices at one auction. This was a questionable fish day. At sunrise, a 15-mile-per-hour easterly wind had come up. The scrub oaks behind Bob's house were rustling, a sure sign that things were rough on the water. Fish didn't actually show during easterly winds, which pushed colder water inshore. Cape harpooners tended to stay inside during easterlies, but there was a chance the wind would quote-unquote lay down, so Bob decided to head offshore to give it a try. He was the only one who did, and he came back a victor. We planned to get underway from Sandwich Harbor at 8 a.m., but there was a delay. Bob's crew included Wade Bellman, first mate, and a summer helper, Matt Bunnell, a junior at Barnstable High. I was along for the ride. We left the slip and went to the fuel dock. There were two tanks in the Scratcher, filled through screw caps flush to the deck. Bob filled one tank with diesel fuel, closed it off, opened the other, and told Matt to finish. Matt hadn't fueled up before, and he'd never handled the high-pressure hose. As he bent over the tank, his pants rode down, and when he stood to hitch them up, the nozzle burst into the air. Matt took a blast to the chest and in the face, and when the hose skittered around, I took a stream from the waist down. I tried to jump over the engine box to get out of the way, but hit a storage box head first and rebounded into a puddle of fuel. It was potentially a hazardous situation, not so much because of the fuel, which wasn't very flammable, but because two Coast Guard boats were moored nearby. The Coast Guard frowned upon the slightest of spills. Bob and Wade poured laundry detergent on the oil slick spreading out from the boat. Matt left to wash his face. I took the keys to Bob's truck. We don't wear clothes on the boat, he told me. And with eyes glued to the road, pants drenched with diesel, I drove off to shower and change. Matt didn't get that opportunity. An hour later, he was still blinking as he scrubbed the deck. The Scratcher finally left the harbor at 9:30 and cut across Cape Cod Bay toward Race Point at the tip of Provincetown. The ride across the bay seemed to bring stories out of Bob, and in the early part of the trip he liked to talk. Some buyers, Bob said, had gotten rich while the fishermen were kept in the dark about the prices bluefin were bringing. Years ago, I had an experience with the Moonies, he said. The Unification Church of Reverend Moon had been involved in the bluefin tuna fishery for several years. Quote, I don't agree with their beliefs, but I sure did like the way they made all the other dealers honest by offering honest prices for the fish. I caught a giant on the northwest corner of Stellwagen. I was chumming then, so I steamed over to Mooney by boat instead of going in. The price on the dock was almost $3 to $4. Well, the Moonies offered me $7, with the next load of chum bait free. They said they'd pay cash, but not that day because they didn't have enough money on the boat. I came back a few days later for my chum bait and my cash. When I steamed up, I saw the man I'd done business with, a southerner. He was smiling. Most of the other guys on the boat were Koreans, and they were smiling from ear to ear. When I saw that, I knew I'd done well in the market. The buyer said he was going to give me cash and pay me $1 extra, $1.50 extra, because the fish had done so well. In all my years of fishing, I had never been paid more than the buyer said he would originally pay. Never. I went off with my chum and my money happy as could be. The buyer I'd been dealing with came up $3 a pound the next day, but he got me back later on. I had caught 6 giants off Nantucket. It was the 4th of July. I called him from a phone booth at the dock and I left a message. I kept calling back and his wife kept telling me he wasn't there, but he'd be getting in touch with me soon as he got in. I stayed in that phone booth all night long. I literally slept in the phone booth waiting for him to call. The next morning I sold the fish to Canal Marine for $1.25 a pound. I would call all the buyers looking for the best price. To them we were whores, but to us they were thieves. It wasn't too long before one of them had 2 Mercedes and had put hundreds of thousands of dollars into his freezer plant. They didn't get that by selling bait to lobster fishermen. On it went, stories of the Lobster Pot Festival at Monhegan Island in Maine, of a trip to Tsuki Market, of how Bluefin would trail along behind the draggers picking at the trailings, of how they'd bang against the bottom of the boats hauling cod off Chatham,